Okay. Hello, everyone, and welcome. As engineering and data leaders, we all know that how to get a GenAI proof of concept off the ground, like in a sandbox environment with a clean data set and a few API calls, things look all great. The initial demo works, stakeholders are excited, and the technical capability is also proven, right? But in reality, there's a massive difference when you build a POC or an MVP in a sandbox or a playground environment against building a production grade system running at scale, right? This happens especially around month six. Like month six hits, the reality of the difference hits differently, right? The sandbox project needs to scale, and suddenly we're staring at the complex integration challenges like unexpected compute and token costs, data pipelines that aren't optimized, and the board or the execs asking a very difficult and direct question, right? What is the actual return on investment on this entire spend, right? So today we aren't talk here to talk about the AI hype or look at the glossy aspects of the AI, but we are putting AI investment under the microscope to look at the actual frameworks, engineering, telemetry, and the solutioning strategies required to make these systems deliver repeatable, measurable value. So let's get into that, right? So joining me to break this down from two unique vantage points are two brilliant leaders. So we got Kumaran Ponnambalam, technology leader with almost more than 20 years of experience in data and machine learning, currently leading Gen AI initiatives at Cisco, building next generation enterprise AI products. We got Soumya Vivek, head of AI solutions here at Merit, who spends her days designing and structuring AI engagements to solve complex, real world, practical business problems. Right? I'm Tarun. I head up the data engineering and AI engineering solutions at Merit. So, getting into the problem statement, right? So, Soumya Kumaran, welcome. So, let's start with the foundational premise. So, when an AI initiative stalls or fails to return or show returns by around month six, right? People usually blame the tech or the model being not accurate enough, the data being messy, or the tech stack failing is the typical excuses we hear, right? But we argue this is a structural problem and not a technical one, right? So, Soumya, from your side of the consulting and solutioning front, when an enterprise engagement starts showing cracks, what is the real root cause you usually see?
Yes, I think before I frame it as technical, I will frame this as structural, at least in today, right? When we've come past a lot of developments in Gen AI. So in most AI engagements today, the failure point is not usually that an LLM cannot produce an output, right? The model might extract, classify, summarize, and whatever. But the bigger issue is the organization has not clearly defined what this output is meant to change. Okay, so many initiatives start with what model do I use or what AI tool do I use? Because typically we are all in the do mode, right? We want to
Hmm.
jump into action, get quick results, be on top of the leaderboard. But I think the better first question is what decision will this change or what cost will it reduce? What risk will it mitigate? So usually a proof of concept is very impressive because it just proves capability. But production value comes from more than that. More than saying that we are capable, we need to kind of be able to show effort savings, exception handling, and so on. So a simple example is, document extraction. Now, almost everybody wants to extract data using AI. But after that AI solution, if people still manually check every data field, then obviously the efforts are not reduced, right? And even if you have a good extraction layer, the business objective is not met. So the key point is this, right? It doesn't come from model capability alone. It comes from an organization's ability to convert that capability into measurable business outcomes.
Okay, that's a good point, right? And a very crucial point, like about ability to measure those business outcomes and how you bake it into your entire process design itself, right? So, Kumran, let's bring you here, right? You are inside a massive or a very massive engineering enterprise organization at Cisco, right? You building scalable Gen AI models. So when you look at them from the engineering and internal delivery side, right, what does the same structural root cause look like from the inside for you?
Thanks, Tarun. When you look at these structural issues, these difference, the distinction between the AA capability and when you're industrializing it, productionizing it, that's where you see the structural issues appear. And the first reason is typically because the ownership is fragmented. Like, we have so many teams: business, data, platform, security, engineering, the A and the AA team, of course. They all own different pieces of the puzzle, but the AA system itself kind of cuts across all of them end to end. But the ownership is not well defined and fragmented. Second is like what Soumya said, the success metrics are not well defined. We tend to measure, okay, model accuracy, latency, RAG retrieval, whatnot. But what does it mean? What does success mean to a given project or effort? That is not well defined. And third is also about having all the other additional capabilities like eval pipelines, observability, guardrails, human feedback, cost monitoring. We need these capabilities also in place so that we can observe how your things are going, and can also see how the users are reacting to on one side, and also how your cost is going on another. So things don't blow up on one day after because you're not monitoring them from day one. So these are a few structural root causes where the experimentation moves very fast, but then when you get to this 1.6, it actually becomes more like an accountability problem.
Okay. So ownership is another thing which you just said, right? So adding it to design ownership, right? So there is always an ambition, right? But there will not be a clearly defined business problem and ownership across those problems, right? A successful sandbox pilot versus actual production scale adoption also requires measurable KPIs, which is not just looking at how the model performs, but also the technical capability versus what the actual operational impact is, right? So, Kumaran, when we talk about moving from a successful pilot to like a production scale adoption, especially with Gen AI, where does the value get lost in your experience?
When you look at the A ambition versus business problem definition, right? Typically, the leaders say we want to use GenAI for productivity
Mm,
as cost savings or something like that, but it is not specific enough. You need to be more specific about like we want to reduce ticket resolution time by 20% or reduce manual effort by 40%. You need to have very clear set goals. Because when the problem is specific, then you can actually design your system and measure your system accordingly. So you need to set business metric goals for you to then
mm,
go frame the metrics and measure. Second is also like, when you go to pilot versus production and adoption, the pilot is more a controlled environment, right? And because, you have limited users, there's curated data, and there's a lot of babysitting going on. There's high attention from the teams. But then when you go to production, you have a lot of unexpected edge cases, your workflow friction, integration issues, cost constraints. A lot of new things show up. So as I think Soumya said, this production is about what what you're capable of doing, but that does not immediately mean you can do that at scale at a place where it is actually profitable to you, and where
mm.
people actually our users actually adopt it. And then of course the technical capability versus what you do operationally, right? So there is a difference between what your model can do and what your application can do. Yeah, the model can do summarization, classification, generation, etc. very well, but overall, is your application helping your users? Is it doing something for them? Like, does it change the decision they make? Does it remove effort from them, or does it reduce some risk, or does it speed up a workflow? So that also that is another place where we kind of lose traction when we go into production. So
Yeah.
AI value like doesn't like disappear on one day, right? Magically,
Mm.
it just leaks through. When you don't observe and monitor and take action on these leaks, then one fine day, the whole thing blows up.
That's a good point, right? Like it's we usually define a set of metrics, then initially there'll be like a lot of interest in monitoring it. Then over a period of time, the interest goes off, and it's all about like getting it running rather than
Yes.
measuring it right, right? So, Soumya, looking at the other disconnect, like especially around technical capability versus the operational impact, right? So, how do you see organizations misjudging what it actually takes to turn a working model into like a business outcome, which has a real impact?
Yeah, one thing, I also agree with what Kumaran said was the typical boiling the ocean strategies, right?
Mm,
You start at a very high level and say that I want to reduce 10% of my workforce using AI. And then, instead, so this is where, you've got to be much more specific. And as Kumaran mentioned, it is usually it's not a huge void initially or a huge crack. There are very small losses, value losses here and there, which kind of domino into what it is today, right? Or snowball into what it is. So a classic example is, I would typically call an AI powered intelligence platform, right? Where they try and convert an existing Tableau dashboard or a Power BI dashboard, to generate AI insights. This is great, but as long as the insight generated is actionable, right? If this dashboard every day it gives facts which cannot be actionable, then it becomes trivia, right? But you will spend huge amounts of infra, token costs, and whatnot on this dashboard. So the moment you start seeing day 3, day 4 of these insights, none of them are being used. That is where your first leak starts. So this is exactly the gap between capability and impact, right? So your insights is the capability, but is that insight generating any impact? I think that's where we kind of need to be very cautious from day one. Um, the other area where value gets lost is, we think we start with pilots and then we go with the same perception into production, right? Pilots are optimized for demonstration, okay, and then it might use curated examples, limited edge cases, so they prove possibility, not profitability. So in order to reduce this gap, we need to actually test, user behavior. How are downstream hands-off happening? How what are the review effort? And then what is the cost per transaction? Is the cost per transaction, am I able to justify it? Because again, when we develop a solution, we develop with some estimates in mind. But say the tokenomics, starts increasing, inference start exponentially increasing day by day, then this crack slowly widens. So the actual void may appear later, but definitely there are telltale signs much upstream. So this is what we have to watch out for.
Okay, got it. So, Soumya, when you're designing AI solutions that merit for enterprise customers, right? How do you bake that accountability into the solutioning stage, right? How do you, before even the build begins?
I think this is typical a leadership question, right? So before we shape the architecture model approach, I think the first question is, what does the organization want to prove? So the starting point is usually not the AI feature, and it is future evidence that the business will need. Okay. So here, as I said, we should have specifics and metrics that are traceable. For example, if somebody is today reviewing 100 records with this AI solution, are they reviewing 60 or 40 or 90, right? So that is a typical example. And then if the other thing is, if people are not using and taking accountability of an AI solution, it is probably two reasons. Usually we hold the users accountable for this, right? But we also have to take a very critical look at the solution and the user experience itself to see if who is accountable. A user may already have some kind of apprehension, but if the solution doesn't make them, it's not user friendly enough, it doesn't give them the experience, then the accountability clearly shifts to a different angle. And the most important part is having the customer to be a part of this thinking from the beginning. So when we as solutioning partners, right, typically when we start our discussion with customers, some customers come by saying that they have a definite business problem, but some of them also want to integrate AI into their workflows. So I think for them, the first question we ask should be, what business outcome do we need to prove, making them also accountable rather than asking what AI feature we want to build.
Yeah, that's good, right? So you are ensuring that the customer is accountable for the business outcome before we think of just saying, I want something built on AI, right? So, Kumaran, how does that contrast or with you, what you see internally, right? How can enterprise engineering teams build that upfront planning into their roadmap so that they are just not building a technology, but solving a problem with real business impact?
One thing I would say is that when you're doing solutioning, right, it is important to include users very early. Typically, I've seen in these Gen AI efforts and all this, usually team engineering driven. They just get on. Okay, we can do something magical here, build a quick POC, and that we run to production. But uh, in enterprise AI, the business problem is like the leadership defines what the problem is. The solution comes from the technology guys, but the real value is utilized at the user's workflow level. So it is the users who can tell us where the real friction is, right? Or where do they spend time? What decisions are hard? What is slowing them down? Sometimes they don't trust automation. Why do they don't trust automation? And what would actually make them use the system? So if we include users very early in the cycle and get this feedback, the feedback should not come only after launch. They should come when you're defining the problem or defining the workflow. So, for example, you may say that, you may be building. Say, I want to build an AI assistant that like
Mm.
summarizes a support ticket. The users may tell us, "Hey, summary is not my bottleneck, but the real problem I have is going and figuring out are there similar tickets, other tickets where things have been solved, which I can borrow from." So that is my real problem. So you would then try to understand where the friction point is and try to solve that, and that could actually may add value. That could actually make the users use the system, which is what would improve value. So I think bringing users much earlier in the life cycle would definitely help to decide on what value your system brings.
Yeah. So bringing users, help them be part of the design, help them be part of the plan, how they look at reliability, how they take that
Yes.
the operational ownership is very important, is what you. So from an engineering and a product perspective, Kamran, right? What does good instrumentation and observability looks like for an enterprise initiative, right? Like I would say that what should engineering leaders be tracking on their dashboards to prove value or like spot like early warning signals? So what are those KPIs you would recommend?
I mean, we would start with, of course, all the technical metrics that we have,
Mm,
like latency and accuracy and stuff like that. But we need to also define business metrics. And for the business metrics, we need to have boards to track, how we are doing there. And again, when you look at business metrics, it is important to talk with again the users to establish baselines, right? Which is to say that today we are spending X amount of time that translate that time to or time or effort into dollars and say today we are spending X amount of dollars doing something. Can
mm,
Gen AI reduce it by 20% or 30%? And then also look at, we can do back of the envelope calculations quickly and say, hey, if I need to automate this, it would have maybe incur X some amount of cost, Y amount of cost for the LLMs. And do you really see a profit there? Right? That itself will tell you whether there is value even in pursuing a project. We never do that. I think that is some effort we can definitely do upfront to say which projects we should invest our time and effort on. And then that then becomes your baseline and say, okay, here is our baseline, here is our manual baseline. And then based on that baseline, now start building your application and tracking against the baseline and see, are you really showing some improvement? And this needs to even track at the POC level onwards. And there should be a continuous tracking, not just one time and then forget about it.
mm.
Because business processes change, business conditions change, and the value you are seeing this month may vanish next month. So that is also a continuous monitoring that you need to keep on, and then see you're actually meeting what your perceived value was at the beginning of the project.
Okay. So, Soumya, from your perspective, right, what kind of business telemetry, right, especially on the business telemetry aspects, what are the leading indicators on the business side that prove the investment is on track to deliver the actual ROI?
Okay. So from the business side, my first question would be, is this AI solution starting to change either the economics or the behavior of a process? And on these lines, I would track three things. The first
Mm,
one is user adoption. Both me and Kumaran spoke about this. Are users actually using the solution, returning to it and trusting it, or are they silently bypassing to the older way? And there are many facets to it. It could be a human resource issue, or it could be a user experience issue, or a trust issue, right? This is the first one. The second one is friction reduction, right? So is the AI reducing the work it was meant to reduce? For example, if we are using a classifier or a chatbot for support, is the manual queue really getting shorter? If your chatbot is again routing everything and then 10 agents are still answering, human agents are answering the questions, then friction is not reduced. And obviously, the third one is impact. We've spoken enough about it
Mhm.
so far, right? So these early signals matter because final ROI is not a magical number which will, suddenly spring up one day. So these adoption override rates, the exception volumes, queue reduction, all of these are kind of important telemetry which will say if we are proceeding in the right direction. And as Komaran mentioned, usually our dashboards talk about accuracy, F1 scores. Where are we on the leaderboard? I think it is equally important to have, business metrics, number of
Mhm.
tickets reduced, number of calls coming to human support, doing a trend for it, forecasting the trend. I mean, we are AI experts, right? Then use that expertise to forecast our own ROI. So I think that's very important. And all of these signals should trigger action. If I see a downward trend or if I see a static trend and then I'm not doing anything, then ROI is not going to magically happen. So it is not just business telemetry, it's not just reporting. It is about reporting the right metrics, setting up an early warning system, and then actioning based on that early warning system.
Okay, so primarily you're looking at or recommending is to build a AI accountability framework which just doesn't sit with the data science or the IT team, but it cuts across the organization, right? So when you look at embedding this accountability at every level, like from the C-suites to strategy down to the delivery teams and the engineering teams, right? So how do we structure this so that it actually sticks and doesn't just become another process and red tape?
Yeah, so this accountability has to be treated as an operating model, right? Which flows top down, and it is
Mhm.
not just one governance layer. Like it's like a compliance layer, or somebody is, there is an AI team who is accountable. I don't think it works that way. So accountability starts on top, where at the leadership level, the organization will define what AI must prove, which outcomes matter, what risk is acceptable, what evidence justify what they want to achieve. And the second one is a more actionable layer at the program level. It becomes measurable, right? Every initiative needs a business owner, a value claim. What is the baseline and target? From where do you want to reach where? And the third one is at the delivery level. You will have to start capturing evidence from day zero, day one, for whatever has been, defined as measurable. So with these three levels of accountability, and then with everybody responsible, I think it works better. Otherwise, at some point, it becomes a blame game, right? So this is my take on this.
Okay. So, Kumar, from your perspective, right? So, how do we ensure that the engineering and the data teams feel the same sense of business accountability, right? So, rather than just feeling responsible for whether the model runs or the data pipelines work. So, what is your perspective on it?
Yeah, so what I've seen is that everybody is given is accountable for something, but they are accountable for slightly different things, right? So
Mm-hmm.
as you said, the AA team is responsible for ensuring accuracy of the model. The data team is responsible for data management and those metrics, and then the security team is accounted for something else. But what we should do is have this one metric, right? The business
Mm-hmm.
metric that or the goal, business goal for which you're building the application, and everyone should be accountable for that, and they should be measured for that. That's what will make them think in terms of business rather than in technical terms. And then whatever technical stuff they do, it then comes down from or waterfalls down from your business metric. So when you have that, when everybody is working towards a single goal and not these sub goals, then there is focus on improving it, and everybody then is able to make the right trade-offs on things like cost versus techniques versus latency and stuff like that, and focus towards how we can go and achieve that. So I would say unified accountability or accountability of the entire team end to end towards a single set of goals, right? That would actually help. Yes, this is adding to what Soumya said. We do need accountability and other stuff too, but this kind of unification is needed. Otherwise, we do have silos in how people look at what is the outcome of a given application.
Okay. That's the great thing, right? So just not just having the technical indicators, but also ensuring accountability for the business outcome. It's becoming more important, right? So
Mhm.
this has been incredibly sharp conversation, Kumar and Soumya, right? So if let's leave our audience with like one direct actionable takeaway. So if someone is listening and is facing their own month six problem right now, right? Soumya, what is that one thing you recommend they should do on Monday morning?
Okay, so I love triaging, right? So my Monday morning takeaway would be to run an AI value triage, right? Take your current AI portfolio, if not at least one active AI initiative, and triage it into three buckets. Should this scale? Should this be fixed or should this be stopped? Okay. And asking a few questions will answer this. Is the business outcome clear? Is there evidence that value is emerging? Are
Mhm.
people adopting it? So, based on this, some initiatives might be ready to scale, right? There will be a good percentage of initiatives, if measured properly, will show early indicators that it will need some kind of fixing or some kind of modification. But there might be an equal or even more number of initiatives that need to be stopped, right? And somehow we fear to stop something which is not working, right? With the hope that it will somehow magically improve. We want to continue, working on it. So I think that is very important. Stopping something is not personal failure, right? And typically in a competitive environment, we are made to believe that if we stop an activity or a solution, then we are inefficient, but actually not. If you stop it on day one instead of month six, then definitely you're taking a wise decision. So I think this triaging will definitely help. And if you do one initiative every Monday, in about 3 to 6 weeks, your entire
Mhm.
system is cleaned up, right? So the important point is that the AI's investment should not continue just because a solution exists, right? It should continue because there is an evidence that it is creating value.
Good point, right? So what about you, Kumar? What would be one Monday morning takeaway from your perspective?
I would repeat what I said earlier, which is to bring in the real users into the conversation, the value conversation. So typically, what we do is, the same team that has worked on a given problem for years is the one who's doing the AI automation also. So they think, oh, we already know the domain, we already know the business problem, so we know what the users want, and they just jump into doing it. But AI brings in a different dimension, so we need to bring the users again and ask, what is going on, and what problems are we solving for you? Where is your time going today?
Mhm.
What decisions are hard? What would you trust AI to do, or what do you still want to be in the loop on? So when you review with the user, you can understand where you have value, hidden value inside the pipeline that you can leverage. And then you take to the business users and kind of ask the same questions, right? Here is what is happening. Here are the problems here. Which one do you want to change with AI? Which one you want to focus on, whether you want to improve cost or cycle time or even employee productivity. And that could give you a good view of the user and the stakeholder, and the intersection of that, you will see where exactly is what you want to improve or focus on. So I would say keep bring the users into the conversation. That would be my recommendation.
Okay. So thank you, Soumya. Thanks, Kumaran. Right. So to summarize for everyone watching, AI value is not just lost in the technology, but what Kumaran and Soumya has been telling about is like how you need to make your business outcomes important, ensure that an accountability layer exists, and enable organization-led initiative at a user level, right? So thanks again, Kumaran. Thanks, Soumya. That has been incredible. The conversation has been incredible. And to the audience, if you want you will be getting a recording of it. And if you have any questions or if you want to like ask or talk about some of these frameworks Kumaran and Soumya spoke about, you can just respond to it, and we are more than happy to answer. Thanks for your participation, and thanks again, Soumya. Kumaran.
Okay.
Thank you a lot.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you,
Thank
guys.
you.